Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back. I am your host, Attorney Steven Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. Now, this is our listener segment.
That's right, Steve. This is our listener segment. And the listener question today, what happens to any liens after bankruptcy?
Well, I have gotten a couple calls from people who listen to the show this week, and I appreciate the calls, and I'm always happy to answer your questions or meet with you and try to answer your questions. But this comes up in a couple of different contexts. So the first context is, when someone gets a judgment against you, so I haven't paid my credit card bill, and they take me to court. And when they take me to court, they get a judgment against me most of the time. And once they get a judgment against me, then they can collect on the judgment. That's the hard part. So this is where they start coming after me, and they could freeze my bank account, for instance, or they can garnish my wages. And another thing they can do is they can put a lien on your property. So if you ever sell your house or you try to refinance, then you have to clear up that lien. Otherwise, that you can't refinance because they have a priority on your deed or on your house, and you can't. No one can get in front of them. So again, that's what makes you pay them. Oftentimes people have these judgments, and then they file bankruptcy. And if I file bankruptcy, then I am discharging those debts. So even though they got a judgment against me, I can discharge that debt in bankruptcy. And so I don't owe them anymore.
When the IRS puts a lien on you, and if they do they automatically move to the front, or do they get in line behind everybody else, or what do they do?
There's a old saying here. It's first come, right? First in line, first in right. Okay, so if I'm there first, if I have a lien first on you, then anybody after me, they have to take second. Okay, so that's why you call it a second mortgage, because they're in the second position. So first position is your mortgage company. They're going to stay in the first position, and then the second, and then there might be some judicial liens. Now, here's the problem with judicial liens. I just mentioned that the debt itself is discharged, but the liens are still on my property. So I can't get rid of the liens, but I can get rid of the liens if I go to court and I bring a motion for what they call a lien release. So you want to release the liens on your property in bankruptcy. And again, there's a separate action to do that. It doesn't automatically happen. And this, I help a lot of people with IRS problems, as you might be aware. Okay, so people come to me, and sometimes the best way to get rid of the IRS problem is to file for protection under the bankruptcy laws. But if the IRS has a lien against me, and I have some property, so for instance, I might have a 401k, a retirement plan. Okay, all these other creditors can't come after my retirement because it's exempt in Illinois under Illinois law. But the IRS can go after you.
Can Illinois go after you?
Illinois can.
I know.
Yes.
I love it.
So, but the IRS can go after your retirement account. So, I file bankruptcy. I don't owe the IRS anymore. Now they start going after my 401k and start taking away my money there. So they still get paid. So that's why you have to be very careful when you're filing bankruptcy. If you're filing bankruptcy with IRS debt, to be vigilant and to understand what might happen. So, and I think that's why it's so important to use an attorney to file bankruptcy who understands IRS issues. Because if you don't, you're going to be very surprised when you think you've gotten rid of the IRS debt and you didn't. They're still coming after you.
So what you're saying is, even if I've gone through bankruptcy, everything is done, but they can still. How would they still go after my IRA? How would they? They have
a lien against you, and the lien survives.
So my attorney, on top of going into court and getting all my creditors lined up or whatever. I've never been in bankruptcy court, but whatever you do there,
then it's a lot of fun.
Would you have to go back into another date to go to in front of another judge to ask them to lift the liens? And could a judge What couldn't the judge lift a lien from the IRS?
You're avoiding a lien, and something you say because it's impeding my exemption. So if I don't have a lot of equity in my home, and here in Illinois, you're each entitled, if you're married, you're each entitled to $15,000 in equity in the property. If you're married and you're both on the deed, okay, so it gets complicated. But if I don't have any additional equity in my property, then I can bring a motion in court to avoid the lien, and because it's impeding my exemption. But if I have a lot of equity in my house, I probably wouldn't file Chapter 7 anyway, because then they could take my house and they could sell it.
Well, that's why you have an attorney to decide what to do.
Absolutely. And that's why you have to do a full financial analysis before you decide which way you're going to go. And I think that's the thing that most people don't do. They just kind of say, well, let's go file bankruptcy. And then they file they might hire what they call a bankruptcy petition preparer. And they're not allowed to give you legal advice because they're not lawyers. So they're not.
Who made that law? Lawyers.
Well, that makes sense, but it makes sense, Jim. That's a law that makes a lot of sense. And so a lot of
every problem is a leak to a plumber.
So when you use one of these petition preparers, you get a lot of questions about did they give you a lot of information? Did they answer any of your questions? Because they're not supposed to. And so if the trustee or someone finds out that these petition preparers are giving advice, they drag them in front of the judge, and then they have to disgorge any money.
The judge, who's a lawyer.
That's right. But they're just protecting the public, Jim. They are protecting the public.
I understand.
That makes a lot of sense.
You know what? The good thing about being a lawyer and talking about the IRS is everybody hates the IRS a lot more than lawyers.
So if you're having financial problems, and you've had judgments or anything against you, and you want to take care of it, then you need to talk to a lawyer.
What's your number?
312-664-6649, ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, or send me an email.
Okay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.